Every empire the world has ever feared, they all came here. Alexander the Great marched his army through this land and burned its greatest city to the ground. The Mongols arrived next, the most devastating conquerors in human history, with orders to leave nothing alive. The Arabs came, the Turks came, the British came, the Russians came. Every single one of them tried to erase what stood here. None of them succeeded. This is the story of Iran, the civilization older than Rome, older than Athens, older than most of what we call ancient. This is the story of how one people survived 5,000 years of conquest, absorbed their conquerors, and are still here, still speaking their language, still reciting their poets, still calling themselves the children of Cyrus. Stay with me, because what you're about to learn will completely change how you understand world history. Let's start at the very beginning, because Iran's story begins earlier than most textbooks admit. Around 3200 BCE, at the same moment Egypt was carving its first hieroglyphs, a civilization called Giroft was flourishing on the Iranian plateau. They had advanced bronze tools. They had trade networks stretching to Mesopotamia and the Indus Valley. They had art so sophisticated it still confuses archaeologists today. This wasn't a backwater, this was a world center. The city of Susa, modern-day Shush in Iran, was founded around 4200 BCE. Let that sink in, 4,200 years before the birth of Christ. Susa was still a functioning city when Alexander the Great arrived. It was still inhabited during the Islamic Golden Age. It is still a real place you can visit today. That is 5,000 plus years of unbroken human settlement in a single location. By 2000 BCE, semi-nomadic Indo-European tribes began migrating onto the Iranian plateau from the north. Two groups would come to define Iran forever, the Medes and the Persians. The Medes settled in the northwest, building a kingdom that would eventually crush the terrifying Assyrian Empire, the same empire that had enslaved and scattered the ancient Israelites. The Persians settled in the south, in a region called Pars or Persis in Greek. That name Persis is where the word Persia comes from, but the people themselves, they never called it that. They called it Iran from the ancient word Ariana, meaning land of the Aryans, a word that predates any European use of that term by thousands of years. By 700 BCE, the Persians were a small, relatively unknown kingdom paying tribute to the Medes. Their king was a man named Achaemenid, and his descendants would soon rule the largest empire the world had ever seen. In 559 BCE, a young Persian king named Cyrus II took the throne of the small kingdom of Anshan. Within 30 years, he would be called the Great. In 550 BCE, Cyrus did something no Persian had ever done. He turned on his Median overlords and defeated them, not with a massacre, with a revolution. The Median army simply switched sides. They wanted to fight for him. That was the signature of Cyrus. He didn't rule through terror, he ruled through legitimacy. He then turned west and conquered the fabulously wealthy kingdom of Lydia, home of King Croesus, reportedly the richest man alive. When Cyrus captured him, he didn't execute him, he made him an advisor. Then came Babylon, the greatest city on earth. In 539 BCE, Cyrus marched his army toward Babylon. Most conquerors besieged cities for years, starving them into submission. Cyrus did something different. He diverted the Euphrates River, walked his army through the dry riverbed under the city walls, and entered without a battle. The Babylonian people didn't resist, they opened the gates. And then Cyrus did something that genuinely shocked the ancient world. He issued a decree, recorded on a clay cylinder now called the Cyrus cylinder, declaring that all peoples conquered by Babylon would be free, that their gods would be respected, that forced labor would end, that deported peoples could return to their homelands. The Jews exiled in Babylon, he sent them home. He funded the rebuilding of the temple in Jerusalem. The Old Testament calls him the Anointed of God. Isaiah chapter 45 refers to Cyrus by name as a Messiah, the only non-Jewish figure in the Bible given that title. This document, this little clay cylinder, is sometimes called the world's first declaration of human rights. You can debate that, historians do, but what's undeniable is that Cyrus governed in a way no conqueror before him ever had, through tolerance, inclusion, and respect for the cultures he absorbed. By 530 BCE, the Achaemenid Persian Empire stretched from the Aegean Sea in the west to modern-day Pakistan in the east. 50 million people, nearly half the world's population, lived under Persian rule. No empire before it had ever been this large. But Cyrus was not invincible. In 530 BCE, he turned his army toward Central Asia, toward a fierce nomadic people called the Massagetae, ruled by a warrior queen named Tomyris. Tomyris sent him a message: "Be satisfied with ruling your own people, and bear the sight of me ruling mine. Refuse, and I swear that however thirsty you are for blood, I will give you your fill." Cyrus refused. He defeated her son in an early battle using a trap, getting the Massagetae warriors drunk before attacking. Tomyris's son, captured and humiliated, killed himself. Tomyris was done negotiating. She gathered her full army, an army of horse archers who had never been conquered, and she destroyed the Persian forces in a battle so total that Cyrus himself was killed. According to Herodotus, Tomyris dipped Cyrus's head in a vessel of blood and said, "I warned you, now drink your fill." The great Cyrus, the man who freed the Jews, who built the largest empire in history, who is still revered in Iran today, was killed by a woman he underestimated. History does not forget her either. After Cyrus came Cambyses, who conquered Egypt. After Cambyses came Darius the Great, who reorganized the entire empire into a masterpiece of administration. He built roads, the royal road stretching 2,700 kilometers from Susa to Sardis. He introduced a standardized currency. He built a postal system so efficient that ancient writers compared it to something supernatural, messages traveling the length of the empire in days. And then he built Persepolis. Persepolis, city of the Persians, was the ceremonial heart of the empire. Every year at Nowruz, the Persian New Year, delegations from 23 nations would arrive in procession, bearing gifts. You can still see their carved faces on the walls today: Egyptians, Ethiopians, Indians, Greeks, Babylonians, all walking peacefully toward the Persian king. That image, all nations together, was the point. That was Persian ideology. But the Greeks had a different idea about what the world should look like. When the Greek city of Athens helped support a rebellion against Persian rule in 499 BCE, Darius sent a warning: submit or face war. Athens refused, Sparta refused, most of Greece refused. At the Battle of Marathon in 490 BCE, a tiny Athenian force of 10,000 men defeated a Persian army of perhaps 25,000. The news was so shocking that a soldier named Phidippides ran 26 miles to Athens to announce the victory, and then dropped dead. That run became the modern marathon. Darius died before he could avenge the loss. His son Xerxes, with a massive army, possibly 200,000 soldiers or more, crossed into Greece in 480 BCE. And then came Thermopylae. 300 Spartan warriors under King Leonidas, alongside 7,000 Greek allies, held a narrow mountain pass for 3 days against the entire Persian army. They knew they were going to die. They chose to die there anyway, buying time for the rest of Greece to prepare. When a Persian officer told Leonidas that Persian arrows would block out the sun, the Spartan allegedly replied, "Then we will fight in the shade." The Persians won that battle. They outflanked the Greeks and killed Leonidas. Then they burned Athens. But at the naval battle of Salamis, the Greeks destroyed the Persian fleet. Without sea support, Xerxes' massive land army couldn't be sustained. He retreated. The Persian Wars ended. Greece survived. Western civilization, arguably, was born in that moment. But here is what almost no one tells you. The Persian Empire itself barely noticed. Greece was a tiny, poor, fractious frontier. Persia went on for another 150 years, vast, wealthy, culturally sophisticated, while the Greeks wrote history books making themselves the center of the universe. We have been reading those books ever since. In 334 BCE, a 22-year-old Macedonian king named Alexander crossed into Persian territory. He was brilliant, he was violent, he was unstoppable. He defeated the Persian army at the Battle of Granicus, then at Issus, then at Gaugamela, the decisive battle where King Darius III fled and was later murdered by his own men. Alexander took Persepolis, the crown jewel of Persian civilization. And then he burned it. The burning of Persepolis in 330 BCE is one of history's most destructive acts of cultural vandalism. Ancient sources say it was done in a drunken rage, possibly at the urging of an Athenian courtesan named Thais, who wanted revenge for what Xerxes had done to Athens 150 years earlier. The greatest palace complex in the ancient world, gone. Alexander reportedly wept when he saw the ashes. But here is the extraordinary thing. The more time Alexander spent in Persia, the more Persian he became. He began wearing Persian royal robes. He adopted the Persian court ceremony of proskenses, the bow of respect before the king. He married a Persian princess named Roxana. He encouraged his generals to marry Persian noblewomen. He incorporated Persian soldiers into his armies. His Macedonian generals were furious. They had come to destroy Persia, not become it. But Alexander understood something they didn't. You cannot rule 60 million people through force alone. You must become what they already respect. He died in Babylon in 323 BCE, aged 32, before he could fully consolidate his empire. His generals tore it apart. The Persians rebuilt. Within a few generations, the Seleucid Empire that controlled Persia had gone thoroughly Persian in language, in culture, in administration. Alexander's successors became the very thing they had conquered. This pattern, conquerors becoming Persian, will repeat itself again and again. Pay attention to it. In 247 BCE, a nomadic Iranian group called the Parni swept in and took control of eastern Persia, founding what we call the Parthian Empire. The Parthians were warriors of extraordinary skill. Their signature tactic, the Parthian shot, was so famous that we still use the phrase today. Riding at full gallop, appearing to retreat, they would twist in the saddle and fire arrows backwards with devastating accuracy. They stopped Rome's eastern expansion cold. In 53 BCE, a Roman general named Crassus, one of the richest men in the world, led 7 legions into Parthian territory. The Battle of Carrhae that followed was a catastrophe. 20,000 Romans died, 10,000 were captured and sent to work the eastern frontier of Parthia as slaves. Crassus was killed. According to legend, the Parthians poured molten gold down his throat because he had loved gold so much in life. Rome never forgot. Rome never truly recovered from Carrhae. For nearly 500 years, Parthia and Rome faced each other across the Euphrates, two superpowers in a cold war, occasionally hot, never decisive. The Sassanid Empire and Zoroastrianism. In 224 CE, a Persian nobleman named Ardashir overthrew the last Parthian king and founded the Sassanid Empire, consciously positioning themselves as heirs to the Achaemenids, restorers of true Persian glory. And this is when Zoroastrianism, the ancient Persian religion, became the state religion of the empire. Zoroastrianism is older than Christianity, older than Buddhism, older than modern Judaism. Founded by the prophet Zoroaster, or Zarathustra, possibly around 1500 BCE, it was the world's first monotheistic religion, one supreme god of light and goodness, locked in eternal struggle against the force of darkness. Sound familiar? It should. Scholars believe Zoroastrian ideas directly shaped Jewish theology during the Babylonian exile, and through Judaism shaped Christianity and Islam. The concepts of heaven and hell, angels and demons, the final judgment, the resurrection of the dead, all of these appear in Zoroastrian texts centuries before they appear in the Bible. One religion quietly transformed 3 others. Under the Sassanids, Iran was not just a military power, it was a cultural and intellectual superpower. Persian art, Persian architecture, Persian music, Persian court ceremony, all of it spread across the ancient world. The Byzantine Empire copied Persian palace designs. Arab poetry was saturated with Persian themes. The Sassanids fought Rome to a standstill for 4 centuries. In 260 CE, the Sassanid king Shapur I captured the Roman Emperor Valerian in battle, the only time in history a Roman emperor was taken prisoner by a foreign enemy. Shapur reportedly used Valerian as a human footstool when mounting his horse. Persia was magnificent, and then everything changed. By 636 CE, the Sassanid Empire was exhausted. 26 years of almost continuous war with Byzantium had drained its treasury, killed its best generals, and fractured its political class. Out of Arabia came something the world had never encountered: armies of Muslim warriors driven by extraordinary religious conviction, and a new message that was spreading with impossible speed. In 636 CE, at the Battle of Al-Qadisiyah, Arab armies defeated the Sassanid forces. In 651 CE, the last Sassanid emperor, Yazdijerd III, was murdered by his own subjects while fleeing. 400 years of Sassanid rule, gone. The Arab conquest was real, it was devastating. Zoroastrian temples were destroyed, the Persian nobility was displaced, a new religion, Islam, became the religion of the land. But watch what happened next. Within 2 generations, the Persians had transformed Islam itself. Persian scholars became the intellectual backbone of the Islamic Golden Age. Persian administrators ran the Abbasid Caliphate in Baghdad. Persian poetry, Persian philosophy, Persian mathematics all poured into the new Islamic civilization and became inseparable from it. The Arabic word for administrator, derived from Persian, the Arabic word for paradise, derived from the Old Persian word paradisa, meaning a walled garden. Even the language of conquerors carries Persian DNA. The Persians didn't just survive the Arab conquest, they became essential to it. Conquerors became Persian, again. And then came the Mongols. In 1219 CE, Genghis Khan personally led his forces into the Persian-speaking world. What followed was not a conquest, it was an extinction event. The city of Nishapur, one of the great intellectual capitals of the world, with libraries and academies that rivaled anything in Europe, was razed. Every living thing was killed. The Mongols reportedly stacked the skulls in pyramids. The city of Merv, once home to over 1 million people, was destroyed so completely that it never fully recovered. In 1258, Hulagu Khan, Genghis's grandson, sacked Baghdad, killed the caliph, and ended the Abbasid Caliphate. The Islamic Golden Age was over. Historians estimate that the Mongol invasions killed between 30 and 40% of Iran's population. Persian irrigation systems, the Qanat networks that had kept the land fertile for millennia, were destroyed. Entire regions became desert. Some have never recovered. This was the most catastrophic thing to ever happen to Iran. And then the Mongols became Persian. Hulagu Khan's successors, the Ilkhanate rulers of Iran, converted to Islam. They patronized Persian poets and Persian art. Rashid al-Din, the greatest historian of the medieval Islamic world, served as vizier to Mongol rulers and wrote his masterwork, A History of the Entire World, in Persian. The Mongol rulers built Persian palaces. They commissioned Persian manuscripts of extraordinary beauty. They married Persian women and gave their children Persian names. The civilization that the Mongols had tried to erase, they became its guardians, every time, every single time. In 1501, a young red-headed warrior king named Ismail I emerged from Azerbaijan and declared himself Shah of Iran. His dynasty, the Safavids, would create what many consider Iran's second golden age. And they did something politically revolutionary. They declared Shia Islam the official religion of Iran. In a world where most Muslims were Sunni, this was a declaration of Iranian identity, a way of saying, we are not Arab, we are not Ottoman, we are ourselves. The Safavid Shah Abbas the Great, built Isfahan into one of the most beautiful cities on earth. The Persian saying from that era, Isfahan is half the world. Imam Square in Isfahan, still standing today, was the largest public square on the planet when it was built, surrounded by mosques with turquoise domes that seemed to float, a palace with music rooms and frescoes, a bazaar stretching for miles. European ambassadors who visited described a city more sophisticated than anything in their home countries. Isfahan had running water, streetlights, public baths, and gardens that made visitors weep with their beauty. Under the Safavids, Persian carpet-making became an art form recognized around the world. Persian miniature painting reached its peak. Persian poetry, already centuries old, was recited in courts from India to Istanbul. The Mongol Empire in India was founded by Persian-speaking Central Asian kings. Their court language was Persian. The Taj Mahal, designed and inscribed with Persian calligraphy. Persian culture was the high culture of the entire Islamic world. For centuries, the outside world called this country Persia. Inside the country, it had always been Iran. In 1935, Shah Reza Pahlavi formally requested that foreign governments use the name Iran, the name Iranians had always used for themselves. The world complied. Persia didn't disappear because the civilization ended. It disappeared because Iranians finally insisted the world use their name for their own country. The 20th century brought new invasions. British and Russian forces occupied Iran during both world wars. A democratically elected prime minister, Mohammad Mossadegh, was overthrown in 1953 in a CIA and MI6-backed coup when he tried to nationalize Iranian oil. In 1979, the Islamic Revolution swept away the monarchy and established the Islamic Republic, a new political order that reshaped Iran's relationship with the world once again. The Iran of today is a country of 85 million people, with one of the highest literacy rates in the Middle East, a proud and ancient tradition of poetry and philosophy, and a political situation that the world watches and debates constantly. It is also still the place where all of this began. The language Iranians speak today, Persian, or Farsi, is directly descended from Old Persian. The poems of Hafez and Rumi, written 700 years ago, are still memorized by ordinary Iranians. Nowruz, the Persian New Year, traced back to Zoroastrian tradition, is still celebrated by hundreds of millions of people across the world. No empire destroyed this. No conqueror erased it. Not Alexander, not the Arabs, not the Mongols, not the British. They all came, they all left, Iran remained. History has a question it keeps asking, over and over: what makes a civilization survive? Is it military strength? The Persians had it and lost it repeatedly. Is it political power? Every Iranian dynasty eventually fell. The answer seems to be something harder to destroy than armies or governments. Language, poetry, memory, identity. The Persians taught their conquerors to speak Persian, to read Persian poetry, to dream in Persian, and in doing so, they made themselves indestructible. Cyrus the Great is still revered in Iran today, 2,500 years after his death. Hafez's poetry is still read at dinner tables. The fire of Zoroaster is still tended in temples in India, where Zoroastrian refugees, the Parsis, kept the flame alive after the Arab conquest. The nation that can't be destroyed is still here. And now you know its story. If this episode opened your eyes, share it. Leave a comment with the moment that surprised you most, and subscribe to History and Mystery for more stories the textbooks forgot to tell you.